Okay, welcome back for another lousy video. Here we are rebuilding the Gravely clutch again, and I found this method worked out pretty well. I pushed out the bearings and took everything out. It's about 5/8 of an inch or so above the housing here. And we got a couple new springs. They actually make these things now, so that's you don't have to reuse the terrible springs anymore that are all mangled from when you took it out. And I pop them both down there. And these are the cams, and it's kind of hard to see here, but there's a flat side and a round side, which are very similar, but they all have to be lined up the same way. So with it in this configuration, the flat side always goes to the left. And I found that using a pick here, you can kind of sneak them in, and if you have it pushed out just enough, the springs won't pop them out and they won't go everywhere. So that's you just gotta kind of do it by trial and error, I guess, and see how far you can push it out before all the springs start, all the bearings start just flying out. And it helps if you have them all lined up beforehand. Pop them in a cleaner before this. You wouldn't be able to tell from my bench at the moment, but I did try to wash all the kind of take all the grease and all gunk off the inside of this, and the housing, and make sure everything's pretty well cleaned up, and all the cams. Did a quick ultrasonic cleaning on those, and that's pretty much all there is to it. So kind of keep popping them in here. You kind of move them along a little, or just turn the housing. So they don't get too messed up, but I didn't have any problem with them falling out or anything like that. And just keep tucking the springs around. And that's about it. And the tough part after this, I'm not going to show the actual pushing with the bearing assembly in. But the kind of tough part, I think, is actually pushing the central bearing assembly down to the housing. So you really don't want to push on the bearings themselves. You want to push on the race of the the bearing up here at the top. And I got relatively lucky. I was able to just push right on the kind of the actual center assembly itself, not the bearing. So I didn't have a socket that fit around it. I did take some measurements at the end of the video here to see how big it is, and then you need about a 29-30 millimeter socket, or an 1.1/8 inch and a quarter might work, or something like that, to get over that central, I don't even know what you call it, but the part where you actually screw it onto the tractor. But I was able to just push down right on the center of it, and the bearing pushed into the housing, and it didn't come off, which is what I was afraid of. I thought if I pushed the center there, the bearing would get caught up, and then I just push the whole assembly right through and lose the bearing, and everything would be a nightmare. So didn't happen that way. It worked out, and I don't know, but you might need a big socket to get around that, or some kind of bearing pushing tool. So, but just the shop press worked out pretty well there. And here we are at the end, and this is by far the easiest way I've found to do this so far, is just have both springs in there at once. And you could even take an old spring and put it around there, a rubber band or something, to make sure they don't pop out, but I didn't have any problems at all. I mean, there he goes, the camera. And they all just kind of held themselves in there, so definitely wasn't too bad. I did get a little scared about them all flying out as soon as I picked this thing up, so I put an old spring on it. But of course, that doesn't help you when you go to test it, because they need to be pushed out from the springs on the inside, so that was kind of pointless. So I just took that right back off. And there it is, turning in one direction, locking in the other. So hopefully I got that in the right way. I don't know. We'll find out. I think that's the case though. So then, just for safekeeping, I just put the spring back over it so I wouldn't lose any of them, because God knows these things are like $12 a pop if you can find them. So there's 21 of them. You know, after you finish picking them all up off the floor and sweeping the floor and everything else, this goes together pretty easily. So, like I said, it's the biggest kind of set of sockets I have, and they don't really line up. That one's on the bearings themselves, so I don't want to use that. That's a 1 7/16. So that one's not good. Thought about, maybe I could use the plate that comes with it and push on that, but I really don't want to do that because that might bend that. Probably would work, but who knows? And then that's just not gonna fly. So I'll try to put some of the measurements down in the comments or down in the description here. But basically, you're looking at a 29 millimeter or 1 1/16 or so. To get really close to it and going a little further out, I think you can, anywhere between a 29 and 32-ish millimeter. What do you got there? Yeah, it's 32 millimeter socket. So maybe 1 1/4 socket would work if you have one of those. Maybe even a little larger, but you're kind of playing with a little bit of fire there. So, and I don't know, just out of curiosity, the total bearing, which is easy to look up. But you're 2 and something, 54 millimeters, I forget. But yeah, I bought new bearings last time I rebuilt this thing, and this time I got new springs from GT Gravely Parts. And here's the tool I use for it, which of course you can't read either because my camera's terrible, but I believe it's a Gearwrench pick with a little curved end on it, and it's an 84007 pick. It came in a set of various O-ring picks and everything, and it's a really nice set. I've been very happy with that. So there you have it.